Hello YouTube, this is the vlog number 2. So in my previous video I went over what is theology. So this is the second step. What is hermeneutics? Well, I'm going to boil it down for you, and with a little help from my friend Wikipedia, I'm going to basically describe the principles here. So first of all, we need to pay attention to the words. The words are important. So, okay, so a brain fart here. The words, yes. So translations. That's probably the best place to start. The modern translations are actually really, really good. There are what I consider to be the best translation, which is the ESV, and the slightly more dated NASB, both of which are extremely accurate. Those are more like word-for-word translations, except that they've taken that in the ESV and made it even more readable. So it still has that word for word basically, and it still has that, but there's a second half of it, and that is readability. And that's why I think the ESV translation is slightly better. It's important to study the words. If you have questions about a word, there is a freely available concordance called Strong's Concordance. You can look it up online and on a variety of different things, but it's called Strong's Concordance. And basically what it does is an exhaustive concordance, which means it takes every single word that's used and it's like assigns a number to it, and then you can go take that number and look it up elsewhere. So there's that. Alright, so study the words. That's important. Knowing what the words mean, knowing the nuances of the words in the original language is going to help you determine what significance to place on the English translations. So when you're studying, if you're studying in great detail, for example, if you look up one verse and you go, okay, what does this verse mean? Well, there's a lot of different things you have to do to it, but first you have to make sure, especially if there's any words that are different or confusing, that you look them up and you figure out what the nuance of the original language is. There's also there's a great phone app called the Koine Greek Interlinear. I don't know. There's several of these that are pretty good. So the idea being that it will show you the original word used. You won't be able to pronounce it if you don't know Greek. I don't. But it's useful for looking up what the original word was. Then you can go, oh, well, let's see. There's this other word in this other book that's like the same, it's using the same word, but is it really the same word as it existed in the original translation? Or, I guess the original, it wouldn't be a translation, it's just the original. So, looking that up, you can kind of compare, right? You can go, okay, well, it uses this word here. You won't be able to pronounce it, but you can at least go, well, it's also, I don't know where my hands are. It's also the same word used over here. So figuring that out is very important. Okay, next step, figuring out the historical context. This is huge. There are a lot of things that don't make sense today, and we need to understand the original historical context. things like feasts and I can't come up with any off the top of my head right now, but there are a lot of nuances to culture back then that we need to take into consideration. That's all I'm going to say about that topic. It's a big topic. Next thing we need to figure out is contextual analysis, figuring out how this thought over here ties to this thought over here. Figuring out, okay, well, the context of this book, like within the book, you have chapters, and a lot of times it's divided up logically. Like you can read it and make logical arguments out of it and sort it down and go verse by verse and go, okay, well, this is a subpoint of this is a subpoint of that, and that's important. You can also take it within the greater canon of Scripture and go, okay, well, this here fits into this here. That's also important. Theological analysis. Well, I mean, you kind of got to understand, there's a variety of things that we need to figure out about this here. Like, knowing what this is teaching, what is the significance of this? How does it fit in with the rest of Scripture? I realize that's contextual in some cases, but putting it all together, then you get some sort of like useful nugget of truth out of it. And then the other one was special literary analysis. There are a lot of things that are different forms of writing. You have poetry, you have historical accounts, you have prophecy. All of these things are kind of interconnected in some way, but they're all kind of different. So there are hermeneutical principles we need to apply to get the information out of it. You have to understand the cultural context, understand what it meant to the people that it was originally being written to, and then take that and apply it to now. I mean, things are different now, obviously. They didn't have computers back then. There's a lot of things that are different now than then, so we need to take that into consideration. Now, that's one of those things that if you don't take the right approach to this, you're gonna go, well, all this stuff here doesn't really apply. This old stuff. Sorry, the old stuff's on this side. All this old stuff doesn't really apply. But there are some things that do, and maybe there's some stuff that only applied back then. Maybe there's some stuff that applies now. I mean, how do you decide that? That's a good topic. I can't answer all your questions on that because I'm still figuring it out myself. So once we figure that out, figuring it out, moving into, I guess, making it apply to you. That's the important part. Figuring out what things are being said, and then applying them to your own life. The important, once you gather that important nugget of truth, you can just kind of set it there on a shelf and go, well, yeah, that's what it means. But if you don't actually do it, there's no point. So you have to apply it. That's important. And there's some, if I run across any other hermeneutics principles that are important, I will bring them up in passing. But for now, this is a good, nice, bite-sized video, So see you in the next video.